Yes, I did see this, and this is what the review is. But here's a fun story beforehand. So I rented this through iTunes because God forbid I'd ever catch myself seeing this thing in the theater. But as I was hitting play, iTunes shut down. iTunes shut down and said, "Oh, there was an error. You want to report it or something?" And in my mind, I was thinking, iTunes is trying to save my life. iTunes is actually saying, "No, don't watch this. Do not watch this. You have better things to do, man." But I did, and this is my review for 50 Shades of Grey, which is based on the book of the same name by E.L. James, and focuses on Dakota Johnson, who plays young Anastasia Steele, a senior in college and wannabe porn star. I mean hooker. I mean stripper. I mean English lit major. Yeah, sorry, that just slipped out 3 times. But anyway, she is tasked to interview billionaire Christian Grey, which her roommate was supposed to interview originally, but she got sick, so Anna had to fill in. During their interview, Christian sees something and Anna's like, "You know what? This girl is the one. I'm really curious about this girl." So they spend time with each other, and before you know it, Anna basically becomes Christian's sex slave. I went into this open-minded. I rented it. I know I've heard bad things about it. Hell, I was there when the book came out and someone told me, "You know what, this is Twilight fan fiction with grammar errors everywhere. Like, this author doesn't know how to write." And I said, wait a minute, are you serious that this is Twilight fan fiction that got published into a bestseller? And my friend said, "Yeah, it is." And I was like, oh, god damn it. But despite what I heard about the book, and despite what I heard about this movie, I went into it open-minded because, I mean, I make jokes about a movie being shitty before I even get a chance to see it. But in all honesty, I like to go into a movie open-minded and basically accept the movie for what it is. And what it is fucking terrible. It's awful. There are 3 major problems with this movie involving the story and then the 2 characters, because I include Anastasia Steele and Christian Grey as 2 problems. Let's start with the story. Now, as I mentioned, this is Twilight fan fiction. Twilight fan fiction on a forum that the author, like, turned into a different kind of story, I guess, with different characters, a more adult theme. And apparently she wrote a big chunk of this book on her phone. I would not make that up if I tried, because there's actually an interview with her where she confirms that. And you can tell where Twilight had an influence, because it's set in the northwestern United States. Both Anastasia and Christian are basically Bella and Edward, except Christian doesn't sparkle. Christian has this whole personality switch where it's like, you can't be around me, stay away from me. I'm coming to get you, you can't be alone. So it's... And also, there's a lot of scenes where there's nothing really happening. It's just like such a bore fest a lot of the time. And that's something you don't want to see in a 2-hour movie. Next up is the characters. Anastasia Steele is played by Dakota Johnson. Aside from having a porn name, she's an idiot and she's weak, which I can't stand at all. In this day and age where we have strong female characters, not just in science fiction or fantasy, but like strong-willed, independent, she comes across as weak, unable to make decisions for herself. She doesn't put her foot down in situations where a regular woman would clearly go, "No, I'm not doing that." So she's a college student who has never had sex and doesn't know what a butt plug is. So she's never really gotten freaky in her college career, which I understand that there's some people out there who left college with their virginity intact, but it's just a little too unbelievable, especially since her name is basically a name of a porn star. Like, I'm dead serious. You want to wonder why everyone on YouTube who reviewed this before me laughs whenever they say the name Anastasia Steele, or even when they think of that name, because it sounds like a porn star name. Then she has this annoying trait where she bites the bottom of her lip, which It's basically a stand-in for what Bella Swan did in Twilight, where she bites her bottom lip and has her bottom jaw like hanging low like this. However, I will say Dakota Johnson is, as an actress, she's better than Kristen Stewart. Um, and she's naked a lot in this movie, which at first it's just kind of like, oh, she's a good looking girl, and then after a while it's just like, yeah, okay, I've seen it already. Can we get something more interesting? Oh, that's right, this movie is not interesting from beginning to end at all. Moving over to the Christian Grey character, this is the main part of the movie that I hate. I hate this character so much. First of all, he's a billionaire who has a private helicopter, flies planes, plays the piano, acts as romantic as possible, even though he says, I don't do romance. Oh, okay, so I guess flying someone around the world in a helicopter or plane is not considered romantic. I guess playing piano for them isn't considered romantic. Fuck you. But the big problem I have with him being a billionaire is that he's 27 and we have no idea what his empire is based upon. Like, it's like, no, this is more unrealistic than Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark using their money to build these gadgets and go fight villains. Like, Batman and Iron Man are more realistic than Christian Grey is. And also, I mean, I gotta give props to Martin Thomas of Double Toasted for pointing this out. When he reviewed this movie, he said, Christian Grey is creepier than Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. And at first I was like, oh, there's no way. This is, like, he might be too bland to the point where it doesn't have that effect. But holy shit, he does. Like, there's a point where he goes to this hardware store that Anna works at. And rather than coming in and spotting Anna unintentionally, like, oh, hey, I didn't know you worked here. I just happened to be in the neighborhood. He, like, stands in a hallway. He stands in an aisle waiting for her to come around the corner to surprise her. And then he keeps doing that. He pops up in Georgia when she's visiting her mom. He pops up in her apartment without her knowing. It's like, this guy is really creepy. And if you don't believe me, if you do not believe that, like, oh, you're looking into this too deeply, take the Halloween theme, or even the Psycho theme, play it during the scenes with Christian Grey in them, once he and Anna actually start to see each other more, and tell me you don't get that same feeling. I dare you to do that. Another thing is, like, he is a complete control freak, and this, like, Anna, I said, is weak and doesn't know when to put her foot down, but Christian, and that's because Christian comes across as intimidating, brutal. It doesn't help that his eyes are pitch black and emotionless. Like, you look into those eyes, it's like, those are the eyes of a serial killer. But why do so many women fall for this guy? Because he's a billionaire. He has money to impress them. He has a sex dungeon in his mansion, pretty much. Anna comes in, rather than being freaked out, like, she is dazzled by it. Let's see if I have a sex dungeon in my house. Chances are, if I showed a girl my sex dungeon, she's running, she's kicking me in the nuts, pepper spraying me, and calling the cops on me. And Christian Grey somehow gets away with it because he's a billionaire with some mysterious fortune. There's no way anybody could look at this guy and say, oh yeah, he'd be a good boyfriend to hang out. Oh yeah, he'd be a guy I'd like to go share a beer with. Because he's not. He's a... I don't know. I'm judging this character based on what I saw in the movie. I don't know if he's in this in the book, but if he is, then that's really disturbing that these women fall for this guy. Now, I'm not putting all women down at all, because I know this book is mainly geared towards middle-aged housewives. And I know, like, the majority of girls that I know, like, look at this book and say, yeah, this is awful. This is absolutely terrible. So I know that not all women like this book at all. But are there any good things about this? Well, as I mentioned, Dakota Johnson is decent. There are parts where she's very much like Bella Swan, but other parts where she shows emotion and has a slightly different tone of her voice, which makes her decent. Not great, but passable in terms of acting. And then the other good things in the movie were unintentionally funny moments. For example, there's a point in the movie where they're at Anna's graduation because Christian's giving a speech there. And these two girls say, "Oh man, he's so hot." Yeah, he totally is. And then I say to myself, "But you know what? I heard he's gay." Huh? And then Anna comes between the two girls and says, "You know what? I heard he's gay." Huh? And then I was laughing hard because I actually did not expect to call that line of dialogue before even hearing it. There are parts where it is unintentionally funny to where it's very much like Twilight. The jokes write themselves and you just take it and run. So I've complained about this movie long enough, and the positives I've said are very small and can't really save the movie, because in the end, there's a line of dialogue in this movie that sums up my feelings towards the movie. And that line of dialogue is, "This is 50 Shades of fucked up." And yes, it is. Despite giving this movie the benefit of the doubt, it turned out to be awful garbage. But I really wasn't that surprised because what I've heard. And normally I'd say don't waste your money, but because the Christian Grey character made me more angry than I thought I would be, I would tell this movie to burn in hell. It is terrible. It's going to make my bottom 10 list without a doubt. This is just awful. I can't imagine. I mean, if you like this, that's fine. And if you like this for oh, it's so bad, I kind of enjoy it for that way, I can kind of get behind that. But I cannot imagine anybody watching this movie saying to themselves, "Yeah, the two had good chemistry. I was engaged with what was going on, and I want to see what happens next." I can't imagine anybody saying that with a straight face at all. And if you do, that's perfectly fine, but I can't get on board with that. I cannot be in that mindset. This is trash. This is horrible trash. It is just shit all around. And that's my review for 50 Shades of Grey. I'll be back next week with a movie that's actually a year old or more for Retro Wednesday, but till then, leave a comment and tell me what you thought of the movie. If you've seen it, what did you think? Like, subscribe, share me with your friends. And this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.